Hey guys, so this is section three, getting help. It's about creating a reprex. All right. So I'm gonna focus on the case study. You guys can read this through. All right. So I'm gonna focus on this case study. And our author got this example from our studio community. Now it's called Posit Community. The company changed its name from our studio to Posit. All right. So what this means is if you have an error that you can't figure out, then you can make your code as or reduce it to a reprex and post it in Posit Community, like what this guy did here. Come on, you can do it. All right, there you go. Okay, so our author got this code, right? So somebody, um, username Sanobogo, um, posted this reprex and asking for help. Now the author thinks, although this is okay, you could do a better job. Okay, so he shows how to improve this to an optimal reprex. So the idea of reprex, again, if you get an error, you can't figure it out, so uh, you want to get help, right? But that person who can help you is not sitting next to you, right? So you want to minimize your code to be respectful of someone else's time. So you want to make it as simple as possible, but still generate the same error so that person can help you, right? So that's the whole idea. So the author thinks this can be made simpler, right? So he talks about this in the textbook, but you and I can do it together in an R studio. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to create. So it is what is the section number? So let's go back. Section 3.4, and then let's delete and copy. Control B. All right. So this run app. So it has this error, invalid type list of arguments. And we can see that it is in render UI. So where is render UI? Right here, right? So we know the location and we got the error message, but the code can be simpler. Okay. All right. So let's do it. Let's make a better reprex, right? So again, we want to make it simpler, and still, um, you want your code still generate the same error message. All right. So looking at the code, it starts with Shiny app function, and then there's UI, and then there's a server. So that's a little different than what we're used to, right? So let's take this out of Shiny app function and UI and server. That is what we're used to, right? So UI is defined up here and server is defined here, line 8. And I see there's an X. So when we put UI and server inside the Shiny app function, we need comma, but not when we take it out. Okay. And so in the UI side, we have UI output and then text output function. So very simple. In the server side, um, we can see the first thing I notice here is the print. So printing something doesn't affect the output. So we can delete them. And also we see as.xts. XTS package um, is to so this function is from XTS package, which has a lot of functions to analyze time series data. So it's about time series. All right. So what is happening here is so this person created this data frame object and named it df, and then using this as.xts and converted this data frame df to this time series, which is xts object, right? Which also shows up here and no other place, right? So in other words, xts object is only used here in inside the time function. So time function converts this xts to data time object. Okay, so xts is actually not necessary. So instead of creating data frame, converting it to XTS, and then again convert it to datetime object, we can just directly create datetime object. So the author suggests, hey, instead of um, writing this code more than 10 lines long, we can just create datetime object using systime. Systime is shows today's date and the current time. So down to a second, right? So every time you run this, the second, the last number changes, right? So that makes it a little bit harder to demonstrate what the code does. So instead of date time, I'm gonna use just date. Okay. So I'm gonna use a simpler approach. Okay. So sys date function returns today's date. So each time, if I do it in a minute, it's the same date, right? And we are going to add um, so 0 colon 10. So 0 colon 10 creates a vector 0 to 10, a vector of 11 elements. Okay. So if so, not plus. Hold on. Yes, yes. So what happens to say here, if we were to add from 0 to 10 vector, what happens is we have um, what is it? Today's date plus 0, and then today's date plus 1, today's date plus 2, and so on. So each number, 1 here represents 1 day. Okay, so that's what we have here. All right. Um, so that's stored in date object, right? So instead of, we don't need time function to convert an XTS object to a date and time object. So here we can just put date and date. And of course, we don't need to load XTS package, right? So it looks a lot simpler, right? The code looks a lot simpler. Um, we can run the code and we still get the same error, right? Still the same, but the code is a lot simpler. The other thing that he does is this slider input, which is in render UI function, okay, doesn't use any reactive function. So in other words, even if we take this out, it still works the same way. And we can, we don't need this render UI function and also UI output function, okay? And we can, uh, so, so again, we were able to reduce the code, again, a lot simpler, right? And we get the same error message, invalid type, closure of argument. Now the error shows up even before the app launches because now the error is here in the slider input. Okay. Um, so invalid type. So that's how you create a reprex, a good reprex. Uh, Actually fixing the code is not the scope of this exercise, but just to give you explain what's wrong with this code is that invalid type of argument. What I can see here is this. Um, so min and max here is not the same as what we see here. Um, so this min is not an object that stores a value of date. So instead of min and max, you need to provide a date value. Okay. So what I mean by that is, so we also need this up here. Let me see if it gives a different kind of error. I think it's the same. Yep. So it's still the same, the invalid type, right? So this, that's date, right? So if we were to look at date, min, instead of min and max, you need to put this actual value. Or would this work? Mean date. Yeah, the point is we want to put, so I'm going to do two different cases here. So if you were to put just this is character. So we need to convert it to date object because this is date. Okay, so it needs to be the same object as date, and then Control V, and then as dot date, Control C, Control V, right? So I know for sure this would work. So if we reload, okay, did I hit the reload? Hmm. Okay, let me we start a new session. Our studio seems to be frozen. All right, and then there you go. Right. So we can do this. Right. And then if we were to change this, it updates. Right. So I just want to see whether this. I believe that works, but let's see. There you go. The same thing. Right. So again, they all need to be date types, right? Or they all need to be numbers. Um, but just min and max, that this does not work. All right. So again, this will be an approach you could take to make your code as simple as possible and still generate the same error so that you can share it with someone else so that that person can help you. All right. So great job, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.